ghouls and fiends, welcome once again to another edition of the Ministry of Horror podcast, live this week on twitch.tv/tezzius. TZZIUS. I've said that quite a few times in the last 20 minutes. We've been doing a bit of experimenting, not like that. Get your minds out the gutter. We've been doing a bit of experimenting with TikTok over the last couple of weeks. We've done experimenting before in terms of doing multi-streams, so gaming streams, Ministry of Horror streams, between TikTok, YouTube, and Twitch. And I decided I will focus mainly on Twitch because it just the interface, our little community has sort of, you know, been a bit more building over here than, let's say, YouTube, which has been a bit slow, and, you know, Instagram is slow. So we're focusing on Twitch. But I've been having a lot of fun doing little talking head pieces to TikTok. They get all right views, you know, not hundreds of thousands or even tens of thousands like bigger channels, but, you know, hundreds. Maybe a low 1,000 or 2 here or there, which is cool. I mean, at the end of the day, it's always a nice little dopamine hit. So that's been pretty fun. And so I kind of figured while I was preparing for the show, I might as well go live. So I went live on TikTok for about 10, 15 minutes. Just me talking as I'm preparing the show notes. Well, I'll say notes. As I'm preparing the show news and getting the items for the reviews a bit later on. But yeah, you got another follow for the TikTok. So, you know, if you have the Tockety Tick, it's Ministry of Horror. You'll see the logo, the typical MOH logo with the skull in the middle. Be sure to give it a follow and all that stuff. And Instagram, follow. And of course, I have to plug Twitch, twitch.tv/tezzius. Give a follow, give a subscribe if you're able to. If you have Amazon Prime, you get a free monthly subscription. Please consider using it on the channel. We are now less than 3 months away from the big wedding day, the big Vegas day. So, very, very exciting. Very stressful, as weddings are, and finances and all that stuff. But yeah, it's becoming real. So yeah, in less than 3 months' time, we will be in Vegas. And in 3 months' time, we will already be married. So that's very, very, very exciting. Hey, Fran's in the chat. Evening. Listen to the first Nothing But a Good podcast yesterday. Great to hear you guys together again. Can't believe neither of you said getting the band back together, though. No, we've tried to minimise the wrestling lingo. Although I think it's on the second episode we might have talked a bit about the things that we don't miss about wrestling. Now, I do still watch, you know, WWE occasionally, AEW occasionally. I did peter off that for a little while, and I did cancel for a little while my Fight TV subscription. But it's been getting all right again. But we're not here to talk wrestling. But yeah, Nothing But a Good podcast is a new podcast. We've got 2 episodes out now. I think we've got maybe another 1 or 2 recorded. But that is the companion piece to Nothing But a Good Time, which is the new touring live music show from a former Ministry of Slam co-host, Lawrence Case. Singer of Voodoo Vegas. He's been on the Ministry of Horror a couple of times, talking Ghostbusters. Good pal. And yeah, we're doing a music-focused podcast. The idea also to keep the episodes fairly lean. I know I say that for this show all the time and end up doing 3-hour podcasts, but no, they're like, you know, half-hour, 40-minute bite-sized chunks discussing music, really. From the behind-the-scenes stuff, our experiences in music, because I've also got a little bit of a background in music. And yeah, if music is your thing, rock, metal, whatever, not just rock, metal, search for Nothing But a Good podcast. I'm on the coffee today. As I was saying on the TikTok a moment ago, I'm on the coffee because I got up at 5 o'clock this morning to go to the gym. We hadn't got in till late last night because we went to London to go to Marco Pierre White's for a 5-course gourmet dinner, which was part of a Christmas present from Victoria to me. So I probably should have got some sleep. I also probably should have factored this in when I then thought this morning, do you know what, I'm going to do a live show tonight. Yeah, I want to do a live show tonight. I think I was possibly riding on the high of pre-workout caffeine and an espresso at that time of day. that as it's now got to 7 p.m. now 8 p.m. the caffeine has worn a bit thin, so I have got myself an espresso here, which doesn't actually taste that nice. I was just saying on the TikTok that I've run out of sugar-free syrup for coffee, and I can certainly taste the difference. So at some point I will have to buy some more. But other than that, I haven't done a lot of gaming. I do plan on doing some gaming at some point this weekend. Probably not on stream, but at some point I do want to do some game streaming again. It's just been difficult. It's been difficult to find the time, juggling everything, blah blah blah. You know all the usual gumph and lingo. I don't know if it will show up on camera, but I also managed to burn my thumb. You can sort of see it. I don't know if it's going to autofocus. Starting to blister. It was basically I'd put a bowl of rice in the microwave for 2 minutes, and my brain hadn't engaged that ceramic bowl has been in the microwave for 2 minutes. And I just put my hand in, picked it up, then all of a sudden threw the bowl back into the microwave and shoved my hand under the cold water tap. Really dumb. Really dumb. I do not know what was going through my head. I think I was just on autopilot, cooking chicken, and I just, didn't think. I think it's because I normally cook rice in, like, if it's, Uncle Ben's rice, I cook it in the packet in the microwave. But I was trying to be, not cook it all at once, so I can then cook the other half another day. So I took half, put it in a bowl. Long story short, burnt my thumb. Bloody hurt. It's on my dominant hand as well. Stupid, but it's all right. Just blistering, which is obviously lovely and grim. Eddie's in the chat. Hey Eddie, hope you're doing well, dude. Hope you've had a good week. I've just been bigging up the TikTok, doing a lot of TikTok videos, YouTube Shorts. If you follow on any of those platforms, just give the videos a watch, give them a like. Algorithm, all that stuff, engagement, blah blah blah. So not much in terms of gaming at all. Certainly not horror gaming, but I have watched a fair few films. So on tonight's live stream podcast, we're going to have reviews of Fear Street, Prom Queen, which I finally got around to watching. We're also going to have a review of Frankie Freako, which I'd hoped that I could get a review up on Monday. That's when the embargo lifted, and I had a screener for it for a little while actually, but it didn't happen. And also 28 years later, finally got around to watching, and middle of this week I went to watch Jurassic World Rebirth, not Reborn as I originally put on the podcast title, Rebirth. So without further ado, and I just realised I haven't got my jingle machine to hand. Oh god, this is not well planned out. Without further ado, I think it's time for the horror news. This is the news. Whoa.
This is God.
Oh, Eddie, I don't do spoilers on my reviews. Eddie in the chat says, oh god, please no spoilers, pal, of Jurassic World. I'm watching it Sunday. I do not do spoilers, so I try my best not to do spoilers in my reviews. I do talk about the opening moments of the film and the general gist of the plot, but I try to avoid any sort of spoilery moments. But what you may just want to do is maybe mute or skip ahead, let's say 2 minutes, when I get to Jurassic World, if you feel that you want nothing mentioned about the film. But I appreciate, the heads up. Talking of spoilers, that's one of the things I did a little TikTok video on. And if people watching live want to discuss this in the chat, be interested to hear your opinions as well. So a little TikTok I did. This obviously isn't horror news. This is me getting sidetracked. So I just wanted to do it was after I'd watched 28 Years Later finally. I wanted to just kind of touch on my thoughts on the world of discussing spoilers for films on social media etiquette, and it seems to me to have eroded massively in the last couple of months. I don't know, maybe it's been longer than that, but I remember a period when a film would come out, and in the first couple of weeks, social media would generally, if they're going to discuss a film and you happen to be scrolling through your social media, it would say spoilers ahead for blah blah blah. And if you wanted to open up and read more or whatever, then you know, that's on you. If you decided to read further and you've already got spoiler warning, you can't then be pissed off about spoilers because that's your own fault, right? That's how I look at it. But 28 years later, it felt like, I mean, I've only seen it like about a week, at most 2 weeks, but I think it was a week after it was released, like a full week, like 7-8 days or something. But it felt like within the first couple of days, online, there was discussion about certain moments in the film, specifically the finale, the last period of the film, last, let's say, 5-10 minutes. And it was like, okay, right, that feels like a massive giveaway, and it's not something I've looked out for. I've just happened to be on social media. And then within a day or so, you're then seeing images of characters that only occur past, let's say, the middle of the film. They're not in the promotional material for the film, but they're front and center. Now, there's the argument of, if you don't want spoilers, don't go on the internet. I understand that to an extent, but I also think, like, general etiquette is similar to talking in the cinema. You don't talk in the cinema because, you know, not everyone wants to hear your conversation. No one thinks you're a good comedian. They just want you to shut up and watch the film. No one goes wanting to hear other people's conversations, right? And it's to me, it's the same sort of thing with this, where it's like, if you go online, part of a day-to-day routine, you know, brain rot, whatever, just having to scroll, wanting to watch Instagram Reels or TikToks or whatever, or scrolling to see updates from friends. And I know that you can set things like to say, I don't want to see posts that don't relate to directly from my friends, you know, because a lot of social media gives you suggested, you know, you might like this sort of thing, blah, blah, blah. But when you're scrolling and straight away it's like, oh my god, this moment was just unbelievable, blah, 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 and it's just so open. I kind of think, like, when did that change? When did it become a case of, well, the film's out now, so don't complain, or don't go, if you're going to complain, don't go on social media. It just feels like there used to be a bit of a window where etiquette would say, look, because I'm not saying people can't talk about films, because some people will not have that personable friend group or whatnot to say, hey pal, what did you think of this film? Or we both went to see this film, or whatever. You know, we'll talk online. Like, there's no issue. I don't have an issue with people discussing and having a breakdown of what they liked and didn't like of a film. Like, discussion is great. My point is more so in terms of those spoilers, for want of a better term, being just open on your timeline without any potential for it to be hidden. So unless you don't go on any social media until you're able to watch a film, because some people's schedule doesn't allow them to go on opening night or opening weekend. And you also find that people who happen to have advanced screeners or whatnot before the general release will talk about it. Like, it's like, well, this is common knowledge, this moment happens. It's like the film hasn't had its general worldwide release yet. It's just, I don't know. It annoys me because I like to experience the film spoiler-free. It's only if I'm unlikely to watch a film, but I'm kind of interested as to what happens in the story, that I may read spoilers. I may go on Wikipedia and read the plot. But that is more so if it's a film that I don't have enough interest in to actually go and watch, or I don't have enough interest in to wait till it's on streaming to watch for free. If it's a film that I'm just like, well, what happens in this then? I'll read about it. So Fran has said, Eddie says, Facebook for definite for spoilers. Fran says, I've kind of developed an immunity for spoilers now. Eddie says, do you remove spoilers, Fran? And Fran says, if I hear it before I've seen it, it doesn't bother me, as my opinion or experience when I see it may be different. Which makes sense. That does make sense. I think, yeah, for me, if there's a film that I'm particularly interested in watching, I kind of don't want to know anything about it. I quite enjoy the experience of seeing a film pretty much completely blind. Barbarian being a great example. I'm really looking forward to seeing Weapons. I really want to watch Bring Her Back, which I know has been out in America for like a month or so, but our UK release I think is like the 1st of August or late July. Mighty Hags is in the chat. Hey, dude. I don't mind spoilers except for films I really want to see, but those are few and far between now, which is fair enough. I think, yeah, when it's a big horror release like 28 Years Later, it did piss me off how readily available spoilers were in your face. Not like it was a case of, oh, if you wanted to search for them, there they are readily available. It was a case of you log on to any app for social media and straight away there's images from the last minute of the film. It's bizarre. Anyway, we're going to bloodydisgusting.com for the horror news, which we did the jingle for a moment ago. There you go, just to remind you, we're doing horror news now. It comes from bloodydisgusting.com, as per all of my horror news. This, of course, comes from Eddie the Beast's favourite, John Squires. Friday, July 4th, today, 6 new horror movies released this week. Huzzah! So, the second movie from Talk to Me directing duo Danny and Michael Philippou, Bring Her Back, is now available on premium VOD for rent or purchase via A24. So that, I believe, is just in America, because we I believe, will be getting a cinematic release, but not until the end of July, if not the start of August, which is really annoying. Academy Award nominee Sally Hawkins stars. In the film, a brother and sister uncover a terrifying ritual at the secluded home of their new foster mother. Billy Barrett, Sora Wong, Johan Wren Phillips, Sally Ann Upton, Stephen Phillips, and Misha Hayward also star in the film, directed by Danny Philippou and Michael Philippou. So I was a huge Talk to Me fan. Talked about that a number of times ad nauseum. Danny and Michael Philippou are great. Raka Raka, their YouTube channel, was really, really good and entertaining back in the day. Bring Her Back, very hyped for. It is just annoying how for whatever reason, the release has been staggered. Especially in this day and age where social media spoilers are readily available, as we've just discussed. But then saying that, studios don't really seem to mind about spoilers. I know, to circle back on that. Because Thunderbolts, which I'm interested in watching, I wasn't interested enough to go to the cinema because I'm still quite Marvel burned out since Endgame. Some of it's been alright, but I'm still not I'm not back to being a big Marvel fan. But Thunderbolts, the title had an asterisk in it. Within a week, Marvel were advertising what that asterisk was for, and I believe that asterisk gets revealed at the end of the film. I could be wrong, I haven't seen Thunderbolts, but it appears that relates to a reveal later in the film, but because it was out for a week, that was just all over socials from Marvel, and it's like, I don't know, it's not a big deal, it's just a title, but again, it's just the sort of thing where if you weren't able to get down to the cinema in the first week because of commitments, home life, maybe you're a carer or something, it's just not possible, whatever, but you're excited to watch it, you could then just get on social media and be like, oh, right, oh, okay, that feels like that's quite a big deal that's just been ruined for me by Marvel for a film that's been out in the cinema for 6 days. Like, I don't know. Maybe I put too much weight on the joy of a big reveal in a film and experiencing it completely blind, but That's pissed me off. Next up, writer-director J.C. Dolar's directorial debut, the Irish folklore horror film The Twin, was released onto VOD outlets this past Tuesday by Vertical. There is a trailer online. I've not seen it. The movie stars Logan Donovan, Robert Longstreet, and Aleska Palladino. The film synopsis: after the tragic loss of his son, Nicholas struggles with his grief and a strained relationship with his wife, Charlie. Under the watch of psychiatrist Dr. Beaumont, Nicholas begins experiencing terrifying visions of a shadowy figure that looks like himself. As reality unravels, Nicholas must confront his past and the supernatural force haunting him before it consumes him completely. J.C. Dolar co-wrote the screenplay along with Paul Peterson, based on the story by Dolar, Taylor Bracewell, and Chris Allen Evans. I don't really have much to say on that. There's just some images. There is a trailer. I might play that on mute and just skip through it. It's just pinwheeling. So I don't have much to add in that regard. Oh, okay, it looks very dark. There is very much an indie feel to some of the visuals, probably the camera used. Not in a terrible way, but just, not indie as in cheap, but, doesn't look like a studio film, essentially, which isn't a bad thing. God, I'm struggling for caffeine today. Oh, what have we got in the chat going on? So Fran said, Odeon screen unseen's a good way of avoiding them. Don't know what it is until it starts. Yeah, I would like to do more Odeon screen unseen. Do you know what's annoying? Not annoying. It's good, because it's getting closer to the wedding. But quite a few films are releasing in July, and we're sort of scrimping and saving every penny this month, specifically. And I'm just looking at the releases going, okay, Superman does look kind of cool. Maybe. Who knows? Weapons, I really want to see that. Bring Her Back, if that is getting released this month, I definitely want to see that. So there's a few things on the release radar that I'm like, I would like to watch that in the cinema. But there's only so many discount codes that you're able to acquire before you have to start paying full price. And I do not want to be paying full price. So please subscribe to the channel, twitch.tv/tezzius. If you have Amazon Prime, you get a free monthly subscription. And we have a donate button on PayPal. Anyway, that's enough of that. We also have a Patreon, patreon.com/Ministry of Horror. Anyway, moving on. You've heard the story, but never like this. Enter the shadowed world of public domain horror. Oh, great. The public domain horror movie, The Death of Snow White, on digital today via the Horror Collective. Now, the makeup in the image of the old hag giving the apple to Snow White, the makeup does very much look like something from like a 1966 Italian giallo that was on the lower end of the budget scale. The fact it's a public domain horror movie, a horror of Snow White, tells you all you need to know. They're not always bad. There was obviously the horror version in the 90s of Snow White with Sigourney Weaver. That was pretty good, but yeah. The twisted reimagining of the Brothers Grimm fairy tale stars Sanne Lutsis, who starred in Roseblood, a Friday the 13th fan film, and Chelsea Edmondson of Army of the Dead. Pursued by her stepmother for eternal beauty, Snow White flees into a terrifying forest and aligns with 7 bloodthirsty dwarves, cold-blooded assassins with a knack for brutal killings. Jason Brooks, who worked on Friday the 13th Vengeance 2 Bloodlines. I mean, I've heard that some of the Friday the 13th fan-made films are quite good. I haven't seen one of them, but that is obviously a fan-made film. Directs from a script he co-wrote with special effects makeup artist Naomi Mecham-Miller. It's fairly accurate that I'm not going to watch that. Just having a quick look at the trailer. I mean, in its defense, it's not shot as bad. Like, the trailer quality doesn't look as bad as I assumed it would from the image. I still imagine it's terrible, but it at least looks from a production standpoint that, well, hit and miss. Oh god, I've just opened the trailer. Let's close that. Next up, the 7th installment in the multi-billion-dollar blockbuster franchise Jurassic World Rebirth, starring Scarlett Johansson, is now playing in movie theaters nationwide. We will skip ahead because we're obviously going to be talking about that in the reviews. Eddie the Beast, what films are out this month, Tez? I can have a look at that a bit later on, actually. Probably worth looking. I mean, it's just going to make me depressed because I'm not going to be able to afford to watch all of them, but I think there are a few films on the horizon this month. Eddie also says, oh, this is going to be a blast for Disney viewers who hated that Snow White that was played by Rachel Zegler. It didn't look... I mean, we've got no interest in watching it. My fiance is a big Disney fan, but not really so much of the live action ones. I've not seen any of the live action ones because I don't really care for Disney. But we have watched a few Disney or Disney adjacent films recently. Not been too bad. How to Train Your Dragon. Now seen that. It's all right. Mulan, we watched that a few weeks ago. It's all right. I'm looking forward to watching Tarzan because it's got Phil Collins soundtrack. It's probably going to be all right. Then you know, they're not terrible, but not for me. Fran also says the Never Hike Alone Friday the 13th fan films are good. I have heard that was clearly the series that I must have heard are decent. Mighty Haggis thought that was the horror version. Eddie the Beast. Very good. I mean, the press tour for that film was certainly the horror version. And then finally, I think for the new films. Oh no, got a few more. Well, there's mention of Ryan Coogler's Sinners is now streaming on HBO Max from the 4th of July. Sinners is an incredible film. I would highly recommend watching it. It's one of the best films I've seen in a while. I've seen some really good films recently, but I loved Sinners. I thought it was excellent. Cocaine incites a shark feeding frenzy. Of course it does. In Great White Waters. A new Tubi original from the director of Sharknado that swam onto the free streaming platform beginning today. I was looking on Tubi earlier on because after the live stream, after the live show, we're going to do a watch party if people want to stick around, watch a horror film, have a drink. I'm going to open the lager very shortly, have some snacks. And so I had a quick look on Plex, Tubi, and Amazon Prime. Nothing jumped out to me. Great White Waters may well have been on there. Funnily enough, didn't jump out to me. Eddie, I'm guessing Victoria's seen. I don't think so. She doesn't really watch Tubi, but I will have to mention it to her. So, the film's official synopsis reads, when millions in cartel cocaine go missing off Florida's coast, the search turns savage as vicious sharks close in on anyone daring to claim the stash. Angela Cole, Johnny Ramey, Steve Hanks, Ashton Lee, and Hector Becerra star. Director Anthony C. Ferranti co-wrote the screenplay with Jeff Mead. Let's have a quick look at the trailer, if it will load. Sometimes the bloody disgusting site, or my internet, maybe it's one or the other, doesn't really want to load. And that doesn't seem like it wants to load. Oh, here we go. Oh, Jesus Christ. Apologies for the loud, sharp noise. Okay. There's the shark underwater. Tubi original. Gives you an idea of what sort of quality you may be looking at. How do the shark attacks look in this? The underwater action looks okay. I've got it on mute, so I can't really speak for the acting. It's a Tubi original, so, use your own judgment. To be fair, that shark doesn't look that bad. I certainly feel that I've seen worse. Do you know what? That could be one that's worth watching. Hey, Great White Waters. I'll keep the page open so I can message it to Victoria a bit later on. Let's move on. Ghouls and Fiends. Bloody Bites. Followers and Chloe's Happy Hour now streaming on Screenbox, which we don't get in the UK, which sucks. John Squires writes, presented by Bloody Disgusting, Bloody Bites is back for season 14 on Screenbox, and 2 brand new horror shorts are now available to stream on 4th of July weekend. The top performing original series on the Screenbox platform spotlights up and coming voices in the genre, with each episode featuring 2 horror shorts from around the world. New snack-sized frights are available to stream every Friday for the next several weeks. Episodes air Fridays at 8 PM on Screenbox TV. Now, speaking of streaming, I'm not very happy with Shudder. The last 2 months I've seen on their socials, the releases for the month, so releases for June, at the start of June, releases of July have also been now released. Scarce. It's almost like they're just hoping people stay subbed until we get into spooky season, but fuck me. It's an episode a week of Hell Motel, which I've not watched yet, a couple of old films, and that's literally it. There's some periods where there's like no new film 1 week, a couple of entries here. It's bare bones. And I mean, it's only £5 a month, but £5 a month in a cost of living, cosy living crisis adds up. That's 2 months in a row with bollock all new content on there. That's £10. I haven't watched anything on Shudder for a couple of months. Why am I paying for it? So maybe I will cancel the sub until they've got some new things going on there. Not ideal. Anyway, there's new things on Screenbox. We don't get it in the UK, but if you do in America, you've got a few new things dropping this month. You lucky people. Next up, video game news. Bendy Lone Wolf launches digitally on August 15th, physical PS5 and Switch versions coming October 24th. Mike Wilson writes, after launching a physical version of Bendy and the Ink Machine, which I've never played, but I have seen footage, and it's It's weird. I like the art style, but it is. I don't know if it's creepy or not. It's just a bit odd. So, blah, blah, blah. Joey Drew Studios is completing things with a physical version of the upcoming Bendy Lone Wolf, launching on October 24th for PlayStation 5 and Nintendo Switch. Not only that, but the action roguelike will launch digitally on August 15th for PC via Steam, PS4, PS5, Xbox One, Xbox Series, and the Nintendo Switch. Once again, Silver Lining Interactive will be handling the physical release, which you can pre-order from Silver Lining Direct and select retailers. Ordering through Silver Lining will get you an exclusive pin while supplies last. In Bendy Lone Wolf, you play as Boris the Wolf, alone and hunted as he prowls the ever-shifting corridors of Joey Drew Studios. With only a wrench and your instincts, you must search for supplies, uncover forbidden truths, and face the sinister ink-fueled machinery that lurks in the dark. It won't be easy for Boris, as you'll have to deal with the cartoon creeps of the dark puddles. You must battle them back with well-timed attacks and the clever use of traps, smashing them back into the shadows before they drag Boris away. Yeah, I probably won't play it. If it's a roguelike, I think it said, not really my jam. I'm not very good at them. Single-player games give me like a 6 to 15 hours, maybe 20 hours tops campaign, and then I'm happy. I'm playing far too many RPGs at the moment, and they all are massive and take far too long to complete. So I I just need a good action, maybe horror tinged adventure game that isn't going to take me a month to complete. That's all I ask for, and this doesn't sound like it. So no thanks. But if you liked Bendy and the Ink Machine, you have a sequel coming. The art style looks very similar to that kind of classic early Disney's Steamboat Willie style graphics, or art direction, I should say. A few more news bits. Is that video game news? No. Okay, we'll move on from that. Celebrate 50 years of terror with sadist art designs, unique Jaws apparel, from Alex DiVincenzo. From Roger Castell's iconic painting to every conceivable use of the film's iconography, Jaws has inspired countless artwork over the last half-century. Sadist Art Designs is celebrating 50 years of terror with 2 unique takes on Steven Spielberg's 1975 blockbuster. Director garment t-shirts are available in several colorways for $28. Use the coupon code July1975 to save 15% off your entire order. That's pretty good. Written by Peter Benchley and Carl Gottlieb, Jaws stars Roy Scheider, Robert Shaw, Richard Dreyfuss, Lorraine Gray, and Murray Hamilton. We actually watched Jaws last week, I think. Last weekend, maybe around about then, because of obviously it coming up to the 50th anniversary. I haven't seen that film from the start for a very long time. I've always caught it. I saw it once from the start on TV, kind of creepy, and then from then I've always caught bits and bobs of it. But yeah, I mean, it is a classic. It is a classic. The shark attacks in it, very, very well done, subtle. You know, the less you see, the better. That being said, the Quinn death, it's still haunting. It's one of those things where animal attack films, they're fun, but when you actually see an animal basically eating someone whole, eating a person whole, it's just like, oh, that's just creepy, because no one wants to be eaten alive. And yeah, it's pretty horrible, especially when it bites down on him and all the blood comes up the boat. But it's an incredible film. Anyway, if you like that sort of imagery, you can get some pretty cool looking apparel right now with a 15% coupon code. Right, and then finally, book news, because we love books here. I recently went to a place called 66 Books, and oh man, the discount codes, or the discounts there, incredible. 70% off RRP. So I got like, I don't know, 8 or 9 books. Probably more than that. RRP was like 116 quid, cost £30. £33. Brilliant. Absolutely brilliant. It's worth the travel if you're not local. It is worth the travel and if you love books. Because I even managed to pick up Joe Abercrombie's The Devils, which is fairly new. I think it's only just been released on paperback, but they had it there. I was not expecting it because of it being fairly new, so that was pretty cool. Although they didn't have a book that Victoria wanted, because I think it was probably more of an American release. Criminal Minds smut, basically called Ranger. I don't know. I'm assuming, but yeah. In the book news, That Very Witch: Fear, Feminism, and the American Witch Film examines the evolution of witches in horror. Megan Navarro writes. Publishing later this month with a book launch event at Fantasia to follow shortly after. That Very Witch: Fear, Feminism, and American Witch Film, a new non-fiction book exploring the evolution of witches in horror. That Very Witch will be published on July 22nd from Luna Press. Researched over the course of 7 years, That Very Witch: Fear, Feminism, and the American Witch movie explores the cyclical rise and fall of the cinematic witch in American culture and her relationship to feminist movements over time. Through historical analysis and dozens of case studies, Peyton McCarthy-Simas analyses how the witch came to be understood as the ultimate cultural boogie woman on the one hand and a classic feminist symbol of empowerment on the other. It traces the representation of demonic women in the past decade back to older horror cycles and through the New Age section of your local bookstore, investigating the countercultural shifts along the way. The book is a deep dive that demonstrates how changes in cinematic portrayals of the witch over time reflect major shifts in how feminism is perceived politically and interpreted culturally in America. From the birth of the second wave to the moral majority, from satanic panic to post-feminism, from #MeToo to the 2024 election, the witch can be found at the heart of the zeitgeist. What can we learn from her presence? That's pretty interesting, because witches are one of the folklore horror villains that I think I've talked about before aren't really represented in the same way that they used to. But like when you're a kid, when I was a kid, back in my day, witches were the old hag, the old crone, sort of thing from Shakespeare, hunched over, big hooked nose with spots and riding a broomstick and a big cauldron and doing evil witchcraft. And then typically over time, as with also, vampires, Dracula, they get romanticized, and then it's like, oh, actually, it's the pretty girl who also happens to be a witch, but she's a good witch, but then there's a bad witch, and blah 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 blah. And I liked that we had Robert Eggers' The Witch, where we kind of had that mixture where we had the appearance of this old crone type, but she could also use an illusion to be alluring, and how that then sort of almost seduced our main character in the film, Anya Taylor-Roberts' character, Anya Taylor-Joy's character, not Roberts, kind of straddled that edge a bit. But I do think that there is something to be said about bringing in that creepy style of witch again. Like we had a little bit of an image of it to a degree at the end of Suspiria. I mean, obviously that's a very old film now, but the original, that is. But yeah, I do think witches, if done right, could return as a horror antagonist. I mean, when people talk about the is it the Rudyard Kipling? Not Rudyard Kipling. Roald Dahl. I always get them bloody mixed up. Roald Dahl witch adaptation. That is the transformation scene that always freaked people out. And it's like, yeah, because witches like that are creepy. Why don't we lean into that more? I don't know. It's an odd one. Anyway, on that poignant note, that is the end of the horror news. That was the news. I need that caffeine. That was probably grim to watch me glug at that, but God, Lord, I'm tired. We've got a long show to go. But it's now time for reviews, which gives me an opportunity to open my beer. Skillfully done. Like a pro, like I've done this before. So, Ghouls and Fiends. First up in the reviews. It's been out a few weeks. I'm quite late to it. I only watched it eventually because I wanted something to watch, and I thought, let's give Netflix a go. I've given Netflix some shit recently for not being as good of a streaming platform as it's been in the past. But I have started watching a few more true crime things on there. Not finished any of them because ad breaks do my head in. But I have started the Rose and Fred West documentary, and there was also another true crime one, all grim stuff. But I saw on there Fear Street Prom Queen, and I thought, I've seen the first two Fear Street films. They're all right. They're okay. Let's give this new one a watch, even though the initial reviews I'd heard were not that promising, ? But as with the reviews, we're going to talk a little bit about the film, how the film, the opening of the film, the general gist of the film. Without going into spoilers, I'll then talk about the highs, the lows, and I will give you my score out of 10. Now, this is just my opinion. You may disagree with it, and that's completely fine. Let me know your thoughts in the live chat or afterwards on socials. Ministry of Horror. Ministry of Horror everywhere. The logo, MOH. I'm sure that there's another Ministry of Horror which has only started recently. This show's been around for a few years, so don't get them confused. Fear Street Prom Queen is a 2025 American slasher film directed by Matt Palmer from a screenplay he co-wrote with Donald McCleary based on the novel The Prom Queen from the Fear Street book series. Produced by Chernin Entertainment, it is the fourth installment in the Fear Street film series. Stars India Fowler, Susanna Sun, Fina Straza, David Iacono, Ella Rubin, Chris Klein, Ariana Greenblatt, Lily Taylor, and Catherine Waterston. Set in 1988, the plot follows a masked killer who targets the prom queen candidates of the Shady Side High on the night of their senior dance. Okay. So, in 1988, the senior class of Shady Side High School prepares for their prom. Laurie Granger signs up to run for prom queen against the popular girl group nicknamed the Wolf Pack, consisting of ruthless Queen Bee Tiffany Falconer and her friends Melissa McCundrick, Debbie Winters, and Linda Harper. Laurie is outcast by fellow students due to rumours of her mother murdering her father, though she was deemed innocent. Vice Principal Breckenridge intends for the prom to reinvent Shadyside in spite of the town's poor reputation. The night before prom, candidate Christy Renault, who is also a local small-town marijuana dealer, is stabbed and killed by a masked assailant. Okay, this film has had very, very negative reviews. Oh, Mighty Haggis in the chat says, I needed a break from true crime after the Fred and Rose West. I'm only about 15-20 minutes into the first episode of background viewing, as not to say the W word, O-R-K, because I just suddenly thought that could be misconstrued. Not to say that it's background to working, but I've only seen the first 15-20 minutes of that, and the moment when Fred West is walking around the house with the police and he's smiling, it's just like, oh, did you not see the bones sticking out of the ground? Like talking quite nonchalant about the fact that human remains are there, that are there because he's murdered them and put them. It's just. So I'm only 15-20 minutes into the first episode. I do intend to, hopefully, if I get time this weekend, watch the rest of it, but it's quite a harrowing story. It's similar to the Moors murders in terms of not just because it's in Britain and a lot of the serial killer documentaries are based in America, but it's not just because it's in Britain, it's kind of closer to home, but it's also just the depravity of it is just bizarre. Bizarre is the only word I can think of to use for that. Anyway, so Fear Street Prom Queen I had heard bad reviews for, but I thought, okay, I mean, we'll give it a watch. What's the worst that can happen? It's not that bad. It's just, it is a... I like slashers. I do like slashers. Of course, I love Scream, Nightmare on Elm Street, Halloween, of course, Friday the 13th. The classic slashers, the classic 80s, lesser known slashers, some of the 90s slashers, some of the early 2000s slashers. But with any subgenre of horror, there's always throwaway entries. I mean, if you look at like exorcism-based film, possession-based films, there's tons of throwaway films in that pretending to be The Exorcist or pretending to be, whatever. This is just a very much a by-the-numbers film. It's your typical story of the outcast who is being thrust into the limelight. There's then the popular girl who's an absolute bitch, cowface, dickhead, who's just horrible, and you have to question, why does everyone like this person? Because they're just really nasty. But it's it's a very much by the numbers story. I've never actually read any of the Fear Street books. Goosebumps was huge over here when I was a kid, but I don't know if necessarily Fear Street had the same popularity in the UK. I'm not sure. Chat, let me know if you ever read Fear Street growing up, or if you read it now. No judgment if you read. young adult fiction, whatever. But never read it, so I don't know if the Fear Street story is similar to that. Obviously, the content is quite gory, violent, but the kills in it, yeah, decent. There's one when a chap is getting his hands cut off that was quite grim. That was notable, but the other ones, rather forgettable. There's a bit of a reveal later in the film. But, it's one of those films where it's like, I don't think it's terrible, because if you just want to eat some popcorn, here's some 80s music, see a very much by the numbers story and some decent kills, then give it a go. There's no harm there. But that being said, it's nothing special, really. I just realised, because I've been chatting from one screen to the next, how bright my camera light is. Obviously, audio listeners, this will have no impact on you, but let's just oh, fucking hell, that's bright. Not that one. Soft sunset, that's still a bit bright. Cozy candlelight, that's still very bright. Warm candlelight, fuck me, that's going to burn my retinas. Mild afternoon, and let's just dim the brightness a little bit more. There we go. I'm not going to burn my retinas out. Good. So Fran in the chat says, never read Fear Street. I remember reading some Point Horror books. I don't know Point Horror. Is that also R.L. Stine? Perhaps? Not sure. Same, I haven't read Fear Street, Eddie says. But yeah, I mean, Chris Klein, I remember him from American Pie. And what was the other teen comedy that was a bit lesser known that I always remember thinking, that's actually quite good? Was it Say It Isn't So? Oh yeah, it's when him and Heather Graham think they're lovers but then think they might actually be siblings. That was, during that time, the early 2000s, when you had American Pie, alike type films, teen comedy with outlandish plots. That was alright. But he's in this in a small role. Also, Catherine Waterston and Lily Taylor. So you've got some names there, but no one stands out particularly as being all that entertaining. As I say, kills are all right. So overall, my score for Fear Street Prom Queen, we're going to give it a 4.5 out of 10. It's not quite a 5 out of 10 because it's not probably middle of the road, but it's very by the numbers and is what it is. There's not really much more to add to that than that. So Fear Street Prom Queen, 4.5 out of 10. Next up, Frankie Freako. So I've been looking forward to watching this for a little while. We've talked about it in the news before. It's a new film from writer-director Stephen Kostansky. Now, Stephen Kostansky, or Astron 6, Canadian film production company, they did The Void, which I guess for them was a departure. They previously done comedy. So The Void, 2016 horror film. I think we've watched it before on a watch party. Very good. Fans of The Thing, you'll love The Void. Fans of H.P. Lovecraft, you'll love The Void. It's probably one of the best, or one of the better H.P. Lovecraft films, which isn't a H.P. Lovecraft adaptation. Very, very good. But they also did Psycho Gorman, PG, from 2020, which was not what I was expecting at all, but was brilliant. It's hilarious. But this is very much in that vein. So Frankie Freako stars Connor Sweeney, who must battle the pint-sized forces of evil that get unleashed through his phone line, led by the maniacal rock and roll goblin Frankie Freako. The film's inspired by horror films such as Gremlins and Ghoulies, and marks the first feature in 10 years after the release of The Editor by Astron 6. That is the first release in 10 years by Astron 6. Set in the 1980s, the film stars Connor Sweeney as Connor, a workaholic yuppie who's very bland, that's his character, who sets out to prove that he can be spontaneous and fun after being accused of being uptight by his wife Christina and boss Mr. Buechler. seeing a television advert for a party hotline run by Frankie Freako, a strange alien creature. Connor decides to call it, only to be swept up into intergalactic chaos. So, if you have at any point liked Solar Opposites or Rick and Morty, if that has been your humour, and I used to watch a lot of oh god. Oh god. So the odd gap then in the podcast audio for recorded listeners. Friend of mine, patron, James, getting married this weekend. Congratulations, James. He's given me a spare key for his place. He's got a friend house sitting. His friend just happened to message to say couldn't get in. Problems with the key. So I ran round midstream, speedy tezzius. Thank you very much, Eddie. Ran round midstream. I think it just needed pushing. It's all good. Very, very, all good. Very polite chap there as well. But it's typical during a live stream of all things. Oh god, I'm a little bit out of breath now. I sort of need to open my window because it's so stuffy in here. But when I do, it's kind of windy. My office door, not bedroom door, my office door will start banging, which is a nightmare. We don't want to listen to that. So, Frankie Freako, the film we're reviewing. If you're a fan of Rick and Morty, Solar Opposites, that sort of humour, it is very much of that style. The aliens are from planets called Schmishmosh and Splorgensberg, and it's just silly names like that. But it's just like a live action version of that. It's really quite funny. So Connor is very uptight, and he takes offence when people say your presentation for work is kind of boring. It's not very entertaining. He's just like, what the hell? I don't understand. I don't get what you mean. But it's like, well, it's just, it needs a bit of excitement. And he's seeing these late night phone call numbers with this. It is basically like a Gremlins Ghoulie type puppet, plush puppet, who's doing it looks like a sex hotline, but it's about partying. And he eventually calls it, and these various of these little goblin monsters appear, trash his house, and they're all like, "Oh yeah, we're just having a party, Frankie Freako." But there's also uber violence, but in a comedy way. It's very much a horror comedy, focusing more on the comedy, but not to the detriment of the horror. There isn't the horror is more so, I suppose, in some of the character creations later in the film, but it is very much a comedy horror as opposed to a horror comedy, I would say, if you look at it that way. Yeah, I mean, the performances are mainly focused, I suppose, on Connor Sweeney playing Connor, and Adam Brooks for quite a while as his boss. There's just quite an interesting dynamic between those two. Adam Brooks, who plays the boss, also voices Boink Bardo, and Robe Delaney is played by Rob Schraub. It's just, all I can say really about this film is it is entertaining. If you have seen Psycho Gorman, which is on Shudder, I believe, still, and you enjoyed that, you'll probably love this. I had a good time watching it. Some of the films that I watch on screeners, which I'm very thankful for, can be a bit of a mixed bag. Of course, any sort of thing can, but sometimes you get a good surprise, and sometimes you have some expectations. Sometimes you're going in blind, and those expectations can be met, surpassed, or underwhelming. This, I think, met my expectations. It's not an incredible film. I wasn't howling with laughter, but I generally had a good time watching it. I like all the stupid names for Street Freako, Uber Munch, Crunch, Freak Lord, President Munch, Dottie Dunko, Frankie Freako, Boink Bardo, it's just silly, but I enjoyed that. Frankie Freako, I'm going to give 7 out of 10. It's good. It's good. It's definitely well worth a watch if you like silly comedy, silly horror comedy, horror, whatever. Next up, finally, despite despite trailers, despite spoilers being everywhere on social media, as we've discussed, I finally got around to watching 28 Years Later. And I say finally, it had been out, I think, a week. I think maybe 2 weeks, actually, looking at the release date. If it came out June 19th and I saw it on Monday. So, yeah, just under 2 weeks. Yeah, maybe not within a week, but still, not fully 2 weeks. A week and a bit, right? Okay. And it felt as though some elements were being revealed online. I generally skipped past, didn't read anything on the plot. The only things that I knew about the plot were what we discussed on the horror news in terms of just the general sort of setup. So, with that in mind, normally when I talk about these films, I talk about the opening moments of the film, the general setup for the film. I am going to skip the opening paragraph on this and just focus on the general overall storyline of what you'll have seen in the trailers, okay? There's a purposeful reason for that. I just think let's just leave that part out, okay? So I'm trying to reduce spoilers for those like me who don't want spoilers. Think of that while I have a quick swig of beer. Okay, in 2031, 28 years later, and after the second outbreak, the rage virus has been eradicated from continental Europe, while the British Isles remains in indefinite quarantine. The survivor community lives in Lindisfarne, a tidal island connected by a fortified causeway. Among them are Jamie, a scavenger, his wife Isla, who has an unknown and mentally debilitating illness, and the 12-year-old son Spike. Jamie takes Spike to the mainland for a coming-of-age ritual. On the mainland, they find an infected branded with the name Jimmy inside a dilapidated cottage and encounter a pack of infected led by an alpha, a mutated variant of the infected who are larger, stronger, and more intelligent. Return to the cottage to evade the infected, they observe boats patrolling the sea and distant fire on the mainland. We'll leave it there. We'll leave it there, because there's a lot that goes on in this film. And there really is. The film is essentially... It's almost like three stories all converging, really. We are focusing on the development of the character Spike, young lad, played brilliantly by Alfie Williams. I think it's his first ever role. He's very endearing in this role. Aaron Taylor-Johnson, he's an old actor. He's the sort of actor that's in a lot of great films, but I always think he himself is quite forgettable in them. I think he is pretty good in this, to be fair, as the father for Spike. And Jodie Comer has a very good role in this, as the mother who is struggling with some sort of illness, and there's no doctors on this island. Obviously, this is a UK that is a contained area for the rage virus. It's ever present, but there just happens to be a community that is protected away from it. So we have their story, which that's the initial setup. It does develop from there. We also have the introduction of the alpha. So this is very, 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 very cool evolution. The alpha is basically it basically is an explanation that, and this is explained fairly early on, that alphas are where the rage virus, in some people, the rage virus doesn't just turn them, but it is continually developing in them. So some people, the rage virus has the effect of steroids, where it also makes them bigger, stronger. It's like a next evolution. And yeah, you have these ones who are basically like giants. I think they're probably like, I guess, 7.5 foot, maybe 8 foot. They're notably bigger, but not like, ridiculously CGI bigger. They're all naked. It's a Danny Boyle film. If you've seen 28 Days Later, you've seen Cillian Murphy's dick. You get a lot of dick in this film. It's a bit over the top. One dick is too many dicks in a film. And yeah, the alphas, as you may have seen on social media. Big dick characters, basically. It's ridiculous. But they are quite terrifying. Their signature move is tearing heads off. So there you go. But it is showing the next evolution. It's a poignant film that is more of a drama with horror elements. It definitely does feel closer to the first film, 28 Days Later. I actually started doing a rewatch the other day of 28 Weeks Later, just to see if I'd maybe dismissed it too quickly for feeling too much like a different film to the first one, like too unconnected. I need to continue it. The opening is very good. The opening of 28 Weeks Later is very good, with the assault on the farm. But with this, it's a beautiful film. There's some particular moments when you can see like the night sky as characters are running away from an elf, and it just looks like artwork. And I know in the first film there's moments of actual artwork. Like there's a scene when the characters are driving in a car, and the car is basically moving over a literal painting, which is an odd choice, but I'm sure there's some sort of thematic or artistic reason for that. But with this, it is an incredibly beautiful film at times. It's incredibly violent in moments. It's not over the top. It's not, continuous. There's more of a story at heart here. More heart to the story, I should say. Ralph Fiennes, very, very interesting character in this. I really dug the route they went with him. It's incredibly sad at times. And it is nutty as well. And that isn't a pun before anyone says about the alphas. It's not a pun on that, alright? But, yeah, overall I can't really fault this film too much. I think if I gave 28 Days Later a 9 out of 10, 28 Weeks Later, can't remember what I gave on TikTok, 6.5, something like that. I think 28 Years Later is also, for me, a 9 out of 10. Yeah. Because it's moving. It's got some great moments of nail-biting tension when being chased. The chase sequences, I think, were really well done. And they were done quite in a unique way in terms of the filming, where they had all of this rig of loads of iPhones. I don't really know what the benefit is of filming on an iPhone as opposed to a cinema camera. But clearly they knew what they were doing, because there's certain scenes which just look incredible. The acting in this is I can't fault it. I really like the way the story developed. I'm interested to see what happens next, and we are getting a sequel. I believe the sequel has already been filmed, I think, called The Bone Temple, something like that. Nia DaCosta directing it. Fran says in the chat, does it leave you looking forward to The Bone Temple? Yes, certainly does. But it does it in a good way. Obviously, I'm not going to talk spoilers at all. But it does it in a good way, where it's not a case of, oh god, this whole film has been a setup for the sequel. It's not a case like some of the films that we've had in the past, whether they be Marvel films, whether they be other cinematic universe films, where the film almost feels like it's just a setup for the next film. This is the sort of film, it has a good self-contained story, and it has an ending that, for me, made me go, okay, I'm interested to see what happens next. Whether the film were to just end there, it would leave you wondering what's happened, what's going to happen. But it's not in such a way where it's just like, oh well, you want to see what happens next, you have to watch the next film. It's it's done very, very well, I feel, anyway. So 9 out of 10. And then finally, Jurassic World Rebirth. The one that is causing quite a lot of division, quite a lot of differing opinions online. Jurassic World Rebirth, 2025 American science fiction action thriller film directed by Gareth Edwards and written by David Coep. A standalone sequel to the Jurassic World Dominion film, it's the 4th Jurassic World film and the 7th installment overall in the Jurassic Park franchise. The film stars Scarlett Johansson, Mahershala Ali, Jonathan Bailey, Rupert Friend, Manuel Garcia Rolflo, and Ed Skrein. So, I'm going to have a swig of my drink. And consider this a pre-warning. We are going to talk about the opening of the film, the general kind of setup, as we do with every film. Obviously, this film has only just come up. If you don't want to know anything about the film at all, completely blind, then you may want to skip ahead, let's say 2 minutes. Because I probably will talk about the film for longer than that. But I'm going to talk in this instance about the opening of the film, which I feel the trailers have probably given some indication for, and then just the introduction of the characters. So consider this your warning while I have a quick sip of my beer that opening film spoilers are about to start. Okay. Ooh. Ooh. Shouldn't have downed that. I'm going to burp. So, Ghouls and Fiends. Are we ready? The opening of the film. 2010, a laboratory is set up on the island of Isle St. Hubert in the Atlantic Ocean to create transgenetic mutated dinosaurs. One of these creations, a deformed six-limbed tyrannosaur dubbed Distortus Rex, escapes containment and wreaks havoc, forcing the facility personnel to abandon the island. 17 years later, and 5 years after the biosyn incident that caused the transgenic locust outbreak, the Earth's climate is inhospitable to sustain the dinosaurs. They are forced to reside around the equator, which resembles the Mesozoic climate and which has been marked a no-travel zone. Martin Krebs, an executive at pharmaceutical company Parker Genetics, recruits Zora Bennett, a former ex-military covert operative, to collaborate with paleontologist Dr. Henry Loomis on a top-secret mission to retrieve biomaterial samples from the largest prehistoric specimens, which hold the key to a new heart disease treatment. In a bar in Suriname, Zora recruits her longtime friend Duncan Kincaid to lead the expedition. He brings boat driver Leclerc, mercenary Nina, and the security chief Bobby Atwater. God, I'm so hot in this room. So, the spoilers there, other than as Fran says, spoilers, there are dinosaurs. The spoilers there are just in terms of the very opening of the film. No, nothing later on in terms of what happens, but just the general setup for the film. So, Scarlett Johansson is Zora Bennett. Martin Krebs, played by Jonathan Bailey. So, it's kind of like in a video game world. It would be initially one of those missions where you need to go and collect some samples and bring them back to then unlock the next area. Just to give you an idea of what the purpose of the film is in terms of the narrative. There's obviously other things going on. There's other characters introduced, but I'll kind of keep it just to that for the time being. So, when we came out of the cinema, if you might have seen the TikTok already, or if not, check out TikTok Ministry of Horror or YouTube Shorts. I put up a little video of my post-ish cinema thoughts. So myself and Victoria went to see it on Wednesday night. We went to record a post-cinema reactions, and I put her initial reaction on the video. But mine were more, I don't know, muted. I needed to think about things. So she loved the film, absolutely loved it. Best sequel for her since, I guess, since the original. Absolutely adored the film. For me, it felt like a film of two halves, and I've slept on it. And I think, as I've said in my recent sort of video on it, which I didn't go into a score. That's what we're doing here today. But I talked about what it was that stood out to me and what stood out to me maybe in a negative light. So, in the opening 45 minutes or so of the film, maybe opening half an hour, 45 minutes might be a little harsh, we have these moments of dialogue between the characters. It's your typical thing in a film when you're not going to have action non-stop for 90 minutes, 2 hours, because otherwise you will just get bored. You'll need to have these establishing moments where you start to understand who the characters are, what drives them, what's unique about them, what their relationships are to each other. I found myself sort of thinking something isn't quite clicking, and I'm not sure what. Is it Scarlett Johansson's acting? Well, no, she's a brilliant actress. I've been a fan of her since Ghost World. Is it anyone else's acting? Well, no. Mahershala Ali is he's very good in this, as he is in everything really that I've seen him in. He's an incredible actor. Jonathan Bailey as well. I'm not that familiar with Jonathan Bailey, but he plays his role, which is a little bit 2D, I will say, but he plays his role very well. I can't say what character he's very similar to from a particular favourite film of mine from the mid-80s. Doesn't necessarily narrow it down, but once you've seen this, you may be able to have an idea of who I'm thinking about. Very, very similar character traits to that. So I'm like, okay, well, it isn't the acting. It isn't like anyone is being bad at acting. The cinematography in this is incredible. Like, there's some really beautiful shots in this. In that first hour, we do see a few dinosaurs, and the dinosaurs do look great in this. I'm pretty sure they're 100% CGI, but they are done very, very well. I've got no faults with that. So what was it in the first half hour, 45 minutes that just wasn't quite sitting right for me at the time? And I think it comes down to potentially the script dialogue. There's moments of discussions between the characters that just felt a little cookie cutter, a little, not necessarily boring. Like, I wasn't bored, but in terms of just the dialogue of, well, hey, have you been since so and so? Oh, this happened. All right, it's basically very bland, direct dialogue to establish, oh, this person's had this tragedy. Well, this person's been doing this and this time. They have a relationship that goes back a number of years, but they haven't spoken in a number of years, and this is what's happened to them in that time, And you get that in every film, of course, but it felt a little bit like, I don't know if it was the chemistry in those shooting days wasn't there. I don't know if it was the way it was filmed. There's just something I couldn't quite put my finger on. But does that detract from the film? No. Did I enjoy myself? Yes. Very, very much so. Once you get past the initial time on the boat, when they're heading out to this area to collect the dinosaur samples, and the action proper starts, it's a great... I mean, I know it's been a bit divisive online. Some people love it, some people absolutely hated it. I thoroughly enjoyed it, really. Once those opening periods of stunted, weird dialogue, for me anyway, maybe that's just me being overtly critical. You may not find that issue. Whatever. It's entirely up to interpretation. Once you got past that, I thought the dinosaur attacks were really, really good. They were quite vicious. There was a horror element in terms of some of the kills, definitely, which I don't think we've seen since The Lost World, to be honest. Not to my knowledge. I mean, I do need to give the Jurassic World films a rewatch at some point, because I very much thought they were meh. Like, Dominion I thought was shit, but I genuinely thought Jurassic World and Jurassic World Fallen Kingdom were like, they're okay. I don't really like this whole raptors can be trained and one of them's a good character. I wasn't really that fussed with that. But the first two Jurassic Park films, and Jurassic Park 3, I actually had a first time proper rewatch, because I'd seen bits of it years ago. Was never really that fussed with it, but we watched it a few weeks back, and it is pretty entertaining. Actually, it's not as good as the first film, and it's not as good as the second film. Like, the second film's pretty good until they go to San Francisco, and then it's Godzilla. I just think the ending of it is shit, to be honest. But I haven't seen Lost World in a very long time. But first two are very good. First is incredible. Third's pretty good. Like, if the first one is like a 9 out of 10, 9.5 out of 10, and Jurassic World is a 7.5, maybe a 7.85, no, 7.75 out of 10. Well, not an 8, but it's under an 8, but it's a high 7. Then Jurassic Park 3, I think, is a solid 7 out of 10 film. It's a decent action film. It's got some good set pieces. It's generally quite fun. Yeah, it's not amazing, but nothing more. But for me, then, Jurassic World would be a 6.5 out of 10. Jurassic World Fallen Kingdom would be maybe a 5.5 out of 10. And Jurassic World Dominion, which I've only seen the once, and I did think was shit, was probably, for me, on initial thoughts, prior to a rewatch, I'd say like a 4 out of 10, 3.5 out of 10, which is probably a little bit harsh, but I do remember watching it thinking, how did they get this so wrong? But Jurassic World Rebirth, best sequel for me in a long time. I do think I probably prefer this to Jurassic Park 3. I maybe even prefer it potentially to The Lost World. Maybe. I would need to rewatch Lost World again. I think the weird stunted dialogue aside in those opening scenes, I think the story is pretty good. It's a little bit by the numbers, but ultimately when you're watching a Jurassic Park, Jurassic World film, you just want to see people going to an island, shit goes wrong, dinosaurs rampage. It's not difficult. It's kind of hard to get it wrong, other than Dominion doing it very wrong, which is obviously apparent. But yeah, the dinosaurs, the viciousness of some of the dinosaurs is brilliant. There's a T-Rex chase in this, which is the best since the first film. Easily. It is probably one of the best dinosaur pursuit scenes in the series. Just obviously under Jurassic Park, because Jurassic Park is an iconic T-Rex pursuing scene and T-Rex establishing scene. Brilliant in that regard. I really enjoyed a lot of the, pretty much as I say, I was only a little bit concerned about the dialogue for the first half hour to maybe tops 45 minutes. From that point, I was glued in. Really enjoyed it. I really enjoyed the new dinosaur, the Distortus Rex. I'd be happy enough if future installments just went back to normal dinosaurs, you know. It's kind of similar to like with Aliens when we got to like Resurrection, and when we started going down the whole prequel, quote unquote prequel, Prometheus and Alien Covenant arc of, well, these aren't the originals, these are versions of it through genetic splicing and blah 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 and genetic manipulation, which I get because the dinosaurs are originally, you know, not naturally born, blah blah blah, as with Aliens, you know, all that stuff. But I don't want to see hybrid offshoot genetic manipulations. Just give me the originals. There's going to be tons of great dinosaurs that probably haven't featured in a Jurassic Park, Jurassic World film. So it's kind of similar to me with the Stephen King Holly series. I still enjoy the Holly books, you know, in terms of Finders Keepers, Mr. Mercedes, End of Watch, The Outsider, If It Bleeds, Holly. But by the point we got to Holly, I was like, okay, we're going off on an offshoot here. By the time we got to the Holly book by Stephen King, I was like, okay, this is decent, but I want a bit more just straight up horror from Stephen King, please, because we're kind of doing short stories, then a Holly book, short stories, then a Holly book, then a random offshoot book. And then with Never Flinch, his latest book, which is a Holly book, it's like, okay, enough. And it's similar to this, where it's still enjoyable, as Never Flinch is enjoyable. I'll still watch Jurassic Park, Jurassic World films. They're great in the cinema, especially this in iSense. We went to see it at the Odeon iSense screening. But I'd be quite happy if they weren't to continue down the mutated route, because the mutated dinosaur, the Distortus Rex, did look cool, but was it absolutely amazing compared to the T-Rex or compared to the Raptors or compared to some of the other dinosaurs that were callbacks to even the first film, which I hadn't really seen, I don't think, since the first film? You know, I can't give anything away if it's a spoiler or not, but very good. Yeah, I would say thoroughly enjoyed this. Thoroughly enjoyed this. Controversial or not, I'm going to give it an 8 out of 10. I know some people online have hated this. Someone on my TikTok commented saying 1.5 out of 10 film. It's completely fine. If you haven't enjoyed the film, if you've hated the film for whatever reason, of course, that you know, opinions are great. Everyone has an opinion, right? For me, the moments of peril, the chases with the dinosaurs, that's what I want from a Jurassic Park, from a Jurassic World film. The music worked great in this. They had callbacks or Easter eggs or whatever you want to call them, but that weren't overly reliant on them. They were subtle enough that it wasn't like an eye roll. It wasn't like Alien Romulus when it goes, "Get away from her, you bitch," where I rolled my eyes. They were subtle enough that I kind of was... Some of them I didn't even notice. Victoria picked up on because she's a huge Jurassic Park fan. But the only thing that kept it from being an absolutely incredible film for me was just I don't know if it was the chemistry, I don't know if it was the script itself. There just, for me, felt like there was something a bit off in the dialogue scenes in the early part of the film, the establishment part. Chemistry just felt a little bit off. But from that point onwards, I had a really good time watching this. Yeah, 8 out of 10. I had a great time in the cinema, so I can't really knock it, you know. And I've knocked it enough, I think. 8 out of 10 for Jurassic World Rebirth. So Fran says in the chat, I was going to ask you about your 2 out of 5 star rating for that. What was the 2 out of 5 star rating for, Fran? Just remind me. I can't remember. I can't remember what I was talking about when you may have written that. I'm overheating like hell in this office. Hopefully you can't pick up the fan, but I need to turn it up. But that is it for the reviews. Thank you very much for watching. If you're watching live on twitch.tv/tezzius, be sure to give a follow. Subscribe if you're able to. We have had a new subscriber, but I haven't had a notification to say who that is. So apologies. It may well have been Mighty Haggis. If that is the case, thank you very much, Mighty Haggis. If not, thank you very much, whoever has given the channel a subscribe. But for whatever reason, it hasn't notified me. I'm sorry. Oh, my score, 2 out of 5 star rating for that. Don't Flinch. Okay, we'll talk about that in a second. I know obviously I talked about it on the show, but we'll talk about Don't Flinch in a second. Yeah, be sure to follow on Twitch. I will try and do a little bit more gaming. I wasn't able to keep up the 3 or 4 times a week. Life, weddings. But also we have a Patreon, patreon.com/Ministry of Horror. That is where the show goes out generally 48 hours prior to normal podcast and YouTube platforms. Also, we have the Patreon exclusive show, 90s Slay Fiance. We did have an exclusive to Twitch version of that, which also went out on the podcast platforms with Victoria. We had a great time doing the show. Unfortunately, the audio, we didn't realise the audio issues other than in the chat, but until we could hear it back ourselves, we didn't realise how bad the echo was. We are going to test out a few different alternatives because we can't do that again with the echo like that, but we have other ideas. But 90 Slay Fiance is the Patreon generally exclusive show with Victoria, where I show her a classic horror film from the genre that she hasn't seen before to get her view on it. I'm going to try and do one that she'll actually like this time, because a few of them, especially David Lynch, didn't hit the mark for her, which is understandable. Not for everyone. Also, we have TikToks, Instagram, X, Facebook, Ministry of Horror. Search all on there. Follow it, share it. Get the word out for the podcast. Let's build the exposure as much as possible. If you are watching live, we're going to stick around. We're going to do a watch party, but otherwise, I'll catch you later. Goodbye.